For this project, we're going to practice setting the position of an object and using Flexbox properties to create a monster face in our website. Here's an example of what you'll want yours to look like. And no matter what size our website is, these images are going to appear as we want them to and adjust to the different sizing. So we're going to start in a new blank HTML document. There's a ton of images available, over 50 images, and you can look at this little reference sheet to see which ones you want to use. We have 5 different background options, lots of eyes. We'll need 2 eyes, a nose, mouth, ears, and a couple of accessories. So let's first start with the background. If we want to use this scales background, for example, the image is going to align with the number. So make sure you find the image you want to use, then download the image so you can place it into your document. So we're going to start with a new blank HTML document. And first things first, let's put the background image into our website. This is going to go in our CSS. So we need to have our style sheet or our CSS somewhere within our document. We could either do this externally or internally. I'm just going to put my style brackets between the opening and closing head tag. And in order to change the background of the entire body, that is going to be on the body tag. So go ahead and type body, curly brackets, and here we can put our property and value to change the background image. Background dash image colon URL parentheses quotes, and then you can put in the name of that image. It starts with a 5, so I'm going to do 5 and then background scales.png, and there we have it. The thing with background images is by default it's going to place the image in as its original size, and then it will repeat it if it's too small to fit the page. So it's just going to repeat however big the page is. Typically for a background image, either you want it to be 100% width or you want it to be a repeatable pattern. So in this case, we have a repeatable pattern. You can actually see the seams of where it begins and ends. All right. Now that we have our background in, we can go ahead and put the rest of our images into our document. Typically, I like to do the HTML first, get all of that over with, and then we can start worrying about the CSS. Let's take a look at that reference sheet again. We have a lot of stuff to choose from, and each of these should start with the number that you see next to it. So if you want to put the SpongeBob eyes in, it will start with a 6 and a 7. Let's go ahead and do that. Might as well. img src equals quotes, and then we'll put in those images. So it's 6 iBob l.png. We're going to close the bracket. From here, if you want to adjust the width, you can do so in that same attribute space. Width equals, let's try 300. And let's put in the other side. img src equals, this one's going to be 7 iBob right.png. And we want the width to match, so we'll do that one as 300 as well. And then go ahead and just put the rest of the images in. Alright, so I just got the rest of the images in. I have 2 eyes, nose, mouth, the ears, mustache, and a scar. Now we can start worrying about CSS. We want the eyes and the nose and the mouth to be centered, and we want the ears on the left and right side. So we just have to try and figure out how we're going to put that in our document. Let's first worry about the eyes, and I'm going to put a div around my two eye images. So I have my opening div tag and my closing div tag, so we can see there's our two images. You'll notice once I put it in a div, it's going to show up on its own line. So we're already in a better spot now. Let's give this div a class name. Class equals quotes. We can just call it eyes. By giving it a class name, we're differentiating it from any other div that we put within our document. So now we can go to our style sheet. And if it's a class name, it always starts with dot and then eyes. Put our curly brackets. And let's set the display to flex. In order to use flex properties, you always need to first set the display to flex. Now, we're dealing with movement to the left and right, so that's going to be justify content, colon, and we have some options here. We could center them. Let's see what that does. Okay. You can do space around maybe. That would space them out a little bit more, so it just depends on how close or spread out you want your eyes to be. If I were to do center, but I want a little bit more space between the eyes, we could go in and set the margin of those two images. So that would be dot eyes space img. Basically what that is I am just affecting the style of the images within the eyes div. Margin, colon, and let's put 0px for the top and bottom and 30px for the left and right and see what that does. Okay, and you can just put a number in, see how it turns out, and make adjustments from there. I think 30px looks pretty good. So the eyes I'm happy with. Let's move on to the next part. I think I'm going to worry about the nose next. And I'm thinking the ears will look good if they're next to the nose. So I'll want this left ear on the left side and then the right ear on the right side. I'm going to have to go in down here and adjust where those land in the document. Let's get, we got the left ear, nose, right ear, so now you can see them all next to each other. And let's put those in a div. So I have my opening, closing, and those three images inside of it. This time I'm going to give it a class name of nose. So now we'll go up to our style sheet. Dot nose, curly brackets. First we have to set the display to flex, and then we can adjust how they end up on the page. Let's do justify content again. And I don't want the ears to be too close to the nose, so I'm gonna try space dash between and see what that looks like. Space between is going to put even spacing between each image, but it's not going to put space on the end. If I were to do space around, on the other hand, it would put space on the outside of that image. I think between is probably my best bet. And you'll notice that that nose got a little bit stretched once I put the display flex on there. If you have multiple images within the same div that are different heights, it's going to stretch the smallest one. We can fix that by doing align dash items, and you can say how you want your items to be aligned vertically. So let's try center and see what that looks like. Okay, and you see my nose went back to normal, which is exactly what I want. Perfect. Okay, let's move on to the mustache and the mouth. So I have my mouth and mustache. We're going to put both of those in a div. And what we want with these ones is we want them to be in a column and we want them to be centered. Oh, my mustache should probably go above the mouth. There we go. Okay. And we're going to give this a class name of mouth. Okay. Now, when I put them in the same div and set the display to flex, by default it's going to put those items next to each other, so put them side by side, and you see my mustache got a little stretched. But we can change the flex direction to column, and that's going to stack them one on top of another. Now if we want these to be centered and not stretched in a column like that, we're going to do align dash items colon, and let's center them. And there we have it. So now they are centered in a column. This is a lot easier than centering them separately. By placing them in a column, we only have to have one div instead of multiple. Now the last thing we have is a scar. I think my face looks pretty good. I don't really want the scar to be moving anything around, but I do want it to be somewhere on the face. Because these images are going to be overlapping each other, that scar is going to move the position of everything else in my web page. So what I could do instead, let's give this an ID name. ID equals, we'll just call it scar, and up in our style sheet, hashtag you use for ID names, scar, and we're going to set the position to absolute. Now when you set the position to absolute, basically you can put it anywhere on your document and it's not going to affect things around it. It's actually going to overlap some things. Position absolute basically makes it so that object doesn't actually take up any space. So we could put it on the cheek, we could put it on the forehead, or maybe all the way up here, okay, wherever you want it to end up. And it's going to end up on the left side by default. You could use flex properties to make it go to the right, or you could just leave it how it is. Okay, and that is my Flexbox face.